Ah, the United States of America. So renowned for its extensive freedom, more free than any other country in the world. But today, in this alternative history video, we shall talk about the 7-year-long dictatorship under June Wallace. Let's get to the point, shall we? Not long after George Bush's death in New York City from being shot in the back of the head, Dick Cheney was supposed to be put in office. He was only sworn into office after the funeral of George Bush. 7 months after George Bush's death and 6.5 months into Dick Cheney's term, Dick Cheney was somehow overthrown by Senator June Wallace on April 16, 2005. And on that same day, the freedom in America would go away. A few hours later, Wallace declared martial law throughout the whole country in fear that he'd be assassinated the same way as Bush. Therefore, military presence in the streets and military vehicles patrolling the streets around the whole country were to be seen more commonly. And Americans lost their freedom of speech due to the fact that they could not talk negatively about their leader, or else they'd end up like these important people. These two journalists, Mark Jonathan and Jesus Fernando. When Mark just arrived at the apartment building that he and his co-worker Jesus worked in to publish anti-Wallace newspapers, a man in green pants and a green long-sleeve shirt with a revolver shot Mark and killed him. He then looked Jesus in the eye and then turned around and shot him dead as well. It turns out he was hired by the government to kill these people. The same thing occurred with Senator Luciano Francis when he spoke against Mr. Wallace in the Senate. When he was standing on his balcony, he was shot in the back of the neck by a sniper who was hired by the government. Nearly the same case happened to the opposing candidate to June Wallace in the upcoming election. The candidate was killed when a man with an assault rifle shot him when he was exiting from his front door. Also, the leader of the Patriotism Party of the United States, Raymond Brigham, he was at a rally giving a speech when a government-hired assassin, disguised as one of his party members, shot him with a revolver. He attempted to fight back, but failed, dying in the process. After Brigham's death, a few people rallied up to protest in the city of New York, but the soldiers gunned most of them down immediately when they arrived. After the angry mob was immediately violently dispersed, many rebellion movements started to grow against Wallace. However, they had very outdated weapons, but eventually started to capture more advanced ones from dead police. It was only 4 years later that these rebellion movements started to get more active in ambushing police officers and military forces. Eventually, they captured New York City and started to advance into neighboring states. 2 years after New York was captured, finally, Chicago was now in rebel hands. At this time, Washington, D.C. was already captured, but no sign of June Wallace. In Los Angeles, rebel planes finally flew over the skies, and according to military informants, the president was here. After executing the Army's top general, and indeed Wallace was here, so we did what we wanted to do. We killed him, and his body fell off the tallest building. And the old America was back after 7 years of tyranny.